About 20 minutes later, the bus arrived at West Baxter Boulevard, where news crews from almost every television and radio station in Boston, along with dozens of bewildered residents, excluding Paul, awaited Darren. As soon as he, Linda, and Kathisha got off the bus, they felt as if there was absolutely no way through the crowd, especially since Darren lived at the furthest end of West Baxter Boulevard. Suddenly, a reporter approached Darren and asked him, "Why did you suddenly quit a job you seemed to enjoy doing?" "No comment," Darren began to say repeatedly as he proceeded to struggle through the crowd to get to his home. Linda and Kathisha, meanwhile, decided to proceed to try exiting West Baxter Boulevard. But they too were hounded by the press, being asked why Darren resigned from his previous job, to which they repeatedly tried to tell them, "We don't know, leave us alone." Just then, as Mrs. Hillworth exited the nearby library, she immediately spotted Linda and Kathisha as they struggled to avoid press people. So she began to shove her way through the huge crowd and managed to reach the two girls. Then, immediately thereafter, she shouted at the height of her lungs, "Excuse me! Who do you think you are, district attorneys or what? They know nothing about this, so get your sorry behinds away from here and leave them well enough alone." At that, all of the press people took their equipment and departed from West Baxter Boulevard, while the neighbors returned to their homes. Then, Mrs. Hillworth, Linda, and Kathisha, standing in the middle of the road, noticed Darren standing in his front lawn, repeatedly breathing sighs of relief. He, upon seeing them in the middle of the road, approached them and said, "Thank you." "Oh, no problem," said Mrs. Hillworth in a much calmer tone of voice. A few minutes later, Linda, Kathisha, Darren, and Mrs. Hillworth were inside the library. Darren explained, "The reason I quit my job as a cop was because it wasn't challenging enough for me. I didn't feel like myself. Instead, I felt like anyone else but me, so I quit. Besides, I didn't fit in well at all. You know, I was the only guy who didn't like action movies, and I dare not publicly admit that I am a very big fan of the big purple dinosaur." The two girls and Mrs. Hillworth giggled only briefly. Then Darren passed, "Please don't tell anyone, please." Meanwhile, in a van outside the library, Heather and Christy Lee were listening as they recorded the conversation inside the library. "Whoa, an adult Bernie the Dinosaur fan," Heather commented. "You know it too?" Christy Lee added. "Just wait until everyone reads it in the news tomorrow." Heather and Christy Lee laughed boisterously as they drove away.